Welcome to the Rival Podcast. I'm Neal Maligno. Today is our Fantasy Football Week 2 recap, plus waivers, bold predictions, and more for Week 3 as well. With me, as always, Bruce. Bruce, you good today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's everything going with you?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. Had a crazy week of football, so we got a
I
lot to get
know it's
into.
wild, wild week too, man. I couldn't believe all the comebacks, the teams that lost. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, as a heads up to our new listeners, the fantasy football coverage and the advice and everything we discuss on here is not league size, scoring, format specific, or nothing like that. So whether you're playing just redraft, dynasty, daily fantasy, doesn't matter. Everyone's welcomed and the information applies to everyone. Let's just jump straight into week 2, man. It was crazy. There's no better way, I guess, to start this than with the surprises. Um, I'll lead this one because I think
Okay.
that Tua leads the league in passing yards.
Mm,
He's tied for the most touchdowns. And I
yep.
just think that that's like a crazy surprise to me, especially with the way that, going into the season, obviously we're only 2 weeks in, right? So to lead in certain categories is not as hard as leading in week 16, 17, 18,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But still, just to see what Tua's done, I say surprise because obviously there's been a lot of doubters, for Tua. I think even Tyreek Hill mentioned it, like when a player comes into the league, a quarterback, he only has a couple of seasons to like prove that he belongs here and that a team will believe in him and that this is
Yeah.
kind of Tua's opportunity to do that. Um, so it's great to see the fact that he's leading in these categories and then the comeback that he had last week against the Ravens. Like it was just super surprising to see him leading these categories and to have that kind of success so early on. It's also not surprising since they added this head coach that is an offensive guru. You got Tyreek Hill and you got Waddle. They added all these pieces. Like I guess what's happening is supposed to have happened, right? But it's just happening so fast and at such a high level that it's a great surprise to see for me.
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like they have these two weapons that it's a luxury to have, like Tyreek and Jalen, both guys who can run sub 4.4, both on the outside. They can go across the middle. They can do gadget plays. They can pretty much do everything. And to
Mhm.
have those two weapons, they stress out defenses. So there's no way any week in and week out any defense that comes in that they're going to be able to really game plan to stop one of those guys, because you stop one, the other one's going to have 150 yards plus
Exactly.
10. And again, the Ravens came in a little injured, but there's still for them to do what they did this past Sunday is crazy, crazy.
Yeah, it was impressive, and this is happening without really, Tua's not really using his legs a whole bunch, which we know he's capable of.
Hmm.
The running game has been kind of here and there, but nobody's like absolutely flourishing and going crazy. So he's really just doing this on his own, basically in the passing game right now.
Yeah.
So that was one of my big surprises for week 2. I have a couple more. Do you have any off the top of your head right now?
Yeah, I gotta say the Jacksonville Jaguars are my surprise as a team.
Hmm.
I think everyone felt like the Jaguars, they were gonna have a better season, the vibes were gonna be better, but here they are. They came out, they smashed the Colts, shut them out, and I feel like in today's NFL that's hard to do. Even the worst teams can kick a field goal, right? They can at least get down the field and get a field goal. For them to shut out the Colts, I think that was a big surprise. I think Matt Ryan, is he cooked? I don't think so yet, but I feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars, they got edge rushers. They're stout in the middle. I'm not sure how. I think their secondary is okay, but up front, they got some horses that can do some things. So I think they were my surprise for this week. Even though they were playing at home, but for them to shut out the Colts, that was big.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch them, it's like you can even just see it. Like you can just
Yeah.
feel it that like the team just feels like a different team. Like it literally, and yeah, I know we mentioned it last week, like changing the head coach and all these things. Like it's very obvious. And just highlighting a player on that offense, Christian Kirk
Hmm.
is a top 5 wide receiver after 2 weeks. Again, surprising. All right. I mean, like obviously they added a bunch of wide receivers and a guy like Christian Kirk, people were expecting to be one of the ones that stood out or the one that stood out.
Hmm.
But for him to be a top 5 wide receiver, again, I know it's short, just 2 weeks of information to look at, but it's
Yeah.
still impressive. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. Christian Kirk came in. He came into the league. I think he was drafted in the second round. I think he was a second round pick by the Cardinals.
I think so.
He has the draft pedigree, right? I think, you have to double check me on that, but he has the pedigree. I'm pretty sure he was a top, I don't think he was in the first round, but pretty sure second round at least, maybe third. But anyhow, he has the draft pedigree to come in there. He didn't produce with the Cardinals, but it actually begs the question: what the hell are the Cardinals doing out there? It really makes you wonder. If Cutcliffe, is that his name? Cutcliffe.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It really makes you wonder if the coach out there knows what he's doing. But listen, the guy has the talent. He has the physical talent. He has the draft capital. Now he has a quarterback that actually plays to his strengths. One of the things that Trevor Lawrence does very well is throw a deep ball, and he throws a very good deep ball. And listen, Christian Kirk has the speed to play outside and go get it. So I think it was a good fit. It was a good fit for the two of them. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I just double checked while you were speaking. He was a second round pick.
Second round pick, yeah.
And the head coach is Doug Peterson. I mean, he's just got things.
No, not Peterson. I'm talking about for the Cardinals.
Oh, for the Cardinals. I
think it's Cutcliffe, right?
Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, Peterson's got things going out there, but yeah. I mean, it's an impressive team overall. Like just to see the change from one year to the next, and there's certain guys that are standing out. Even James Robinson, you mentioned him last week. So I mean, the Jaguars are surprisingly being talked about a lot on this show. It's just goes to show you last year.
This might be too much Jaguar talk. But I watched some of the highlights from the game. Trevor actually, just keeping with the Jaguars, Trevor looked good. He was moving the team down the field. Slow, methodical drives and cashing in when they got to the end zone. They got the running game. They got James Robinson, ETN. Like I said, he is going to be. He's going to put up some numbers this year, but I think James Robinson's that dude.
Yeah.
And they got some weapons. Christian Kirk, even Zay Jones. Zay Jones is out there still playing well. And even Marvin Jones. I think they still have some weapons. Maybe not like top tier, offensive weapons, but they're going to produce. So.
Yeah, I have one other surprise that I wanted to mention. I don't know if you have any others, but I wanted to mention one more, and that's Miles Sanders, who, I mean, he's not, blowing anybody away, but just the fact that, you got, I love these stories. Again, I'm a big narrative guy. I like these guys and these stories where a lot of people were counting Miles Sanders out, right? Like people have talked about him in the past when he entered the league and everyone had high hopes for him. And then coming into this season, I've seen a lot of shade thrown on him, a lot of hate, a lot of even just a circumstance situation where there's a lot of backup running backs there that people like. Pass catching guys, all kinds of situations. So it just was becoming this perfect storm where people were like kind of doubting Miles Sanders, letting him fall in drafts, all these kind of things. I remember, I think the last draft I did of this year for a redraft league, I drafted him, and it was kind of met with some laughter that it wasn't a good pick. But I mean, here he is right now. I think he's a top 12 running back in PPR, if I remember correctly. And again, just the fact that he's holding the job down, he's clearly the main back there. He's getting the carries, all that kind of stuff. It's good to see. So Miles Sanders kind of a fantasy surprise, and just a surprise for the Eagles to actually kind of make him their workhorse in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's Miles Sanders and Christian Kirk. To me, they're both in the same bucket in the fact that they're both guys who had they had the draft pedigree. When they came into the league, there were some relatively high expectations that they would become fantasy superstars, especially Miles Sanders. I think everyone, when he came out that year, it was either going to be him or Josh Jacobs. And now to actually see them produce, I think, obviously we're both surprised, but we really shouldn't be. They both had the pedigree. I think Miles also was drafted in the second round. So this is what they should be doing. It's just the fact that they're just doing it 3 years later or 4 years later, whenever they're drafted. So
and both have shined and had their moments and flashed. But hopefully, like I said, 2 weeks in, if these things can stay consistent, these guys will, have possibly their best seasons yet. So
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Looking forward to that. Any other surprises for you before we move over to overreactions?
Yeah. My other surprise was Flacco. Flacco going
Mm.
in, and stealing the win. I think he said what did he say earlier in the week? He said if anyone knows how to beat the Browns, it's me. I think he basically hinted that he's had the most victories against the Browns, and if anyone knows how to beat them, it's him. And look, he went in there, and they stole that W. I mean, everyone knows Chubb should have probably took a knee instead of getting that last touchdown.
Mhm.
But for Flacco to go in and that offensive line is terrible. He has weapons, but for him to pull it off, I know it felt good. So that was my surprise, my other surprise for the week.
Yeah. I was happy for the Jets. The Jets, even the head coach was like, I got receipts. I'm keeping the receipts and all this kind of stuff. So just overall, it was good to
Yeah.
see them. Even the rookies getting involved. Both rookies scored a touchdown that game. So yeah, man,
Yes.
Joe Flacco's got them moving. We'll see how what do you think when Zach Wilson comes back? Do you anticipate that there'll be any like big difference? Do you think it'll get better, worse, kind of stay the same? What
Ooh.
do you anticipate?
I think the coaching staff is in a weird, interesting position because
Yeah.
if Flacco keeps producing and he's winning, I think there is going to be a little bit of pressure for them to keep Flacco in. Because according to all the reports that I read over the summer, Zach Wilson, he looked okay, but he wasn't really moving the offense in the scrimmages and the practices like Flacco was doing. So I think they're going to be in a weird spot, but I think they're going to end up going back to him. He's a first-round draft pick. They're going to have to put him back in there and give him that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they'll definitely put him back in, and
Yeah.
with hopes that he's everything they think he is, and that he can carry the offense the same way old man Flacco's doing. But it will be weird if he gets in, and if Flacco continues to do well until Wilson gets back, and then when Wilson gets back, things get worse. It'll be a weird situation.
Yeah.
So
Before we move on, I gotta
Uh-huh.
say we gotta take a quick second to acknowledge some of the folks that we talked about last week. Wentz went off, right?
Again,
We mentioned Garrett Wilson. He went off crazy, had his breakout game. Curtis Samuel also did pretty good, so that was pretty cool. It was a all around some good picks from.
The point of that is some of the guys that we were surprised by, and again, we're surprised because either they flashed in the past or had potential. But the main thing is if you keep popping up on the surprises, at some point you're not surprised anymore, and you're
Exactly.
expected. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
hopefully these guys all stay consistent. All right, moving over to overreactions. I only have one. It's one I feel, I don't think I'm overreacting at all, to be honest. I think
Okay.
it's fair, but
Okay.
many may say it's overreacting, especially just by the workload that this guy will continue to get. But I believe that Zeke Elliott is done, man.
Really? You think so? You think
I
he's
mean,
done?
he's outside the top 40 in running back after these 2 weeks in PPR. The Cowboys they're going to continue to give him the workload, right? Like,
Yeah.
this team openly endorses him every chance they get. We know that he's their guy in their eyes. But I just think that he's not doing anything. I mean, he's got like 50 something yards each game, I think. I don't think he's done much with the receptions. He doesn't have a touchdown this year, I don't believe. And Tony Pollard just looks good, man. So I feel like Zeke is done. If I'm in fantasy, I mean, I haven't drafted him the last couple of years. I didn't draft him this year in any circumstances, but
Yeah.
I definitely would want no part of him. And that it feels like that ship is sinking on Zeke. But yeah, man, maybe I'm overreacting. What do you think? I know you're a Giants fan, so this might be a good thing to hear. But what do you think?
Yeah, listen, I'm happy that he's getting close to being washed. I don't know if he's officially washed yet. I think he's definitely on the verge, right?
Yeah.
Tony Pollard he's knocking on the door. He's ready to get in there. I mean, the offense looks bad, so I almost feel like I'm
You defending a Cowboy?
no.
I'm just
Not
saying.
even close. I feel like I'm giving excuses, but I feel like we almost have to see this offense with everyone healthy, right? With Dak healthy, with a better O line, dude, when you're running behind a poor O line, that wears on you, man. Like you look at the game we watched last night with King Henry.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he was battered, and I don't even think he's washed, but he was just getting hit in the backfield every single play, and after a while, you just start seeing ghosts, and you just so I don't know. I think we need to. I think that might be an overreaction that it's over for him. I think we almost have to give him one more season to kind of come back and show us what he's got, or
I don't know.
or maybe yeah. I think we almost got to give him one more season to kind of give us what he's
I
got.
don't know, man. Henry's 28, Zeke's 27. They're getting up there. Their running backs have had crazy workloads. I could have threw Derrick Henry in the overreaction section if I
No,
needed to here too.
I know.
So yeah, Zeke is my one overreaction. Again, maybe I am overreacting. That's why it's here. But I'm
Okay,
putting it out there just so everyone thinks about it a little bit extra. What are you overreacting from after week 2?
dude. All right, listen. I know I said Joe Burrow could be a top 5 top, but after watching what's transpired over these last 2 weeks, something's wrong. Something's wrong in Cincinnati. You should not be losing to the Cowboys, who are down Dak, who are missing key offensive linemen. You bring in you pay all this money for all these guys to come in on on your O line. Joe Burrow shouldn't be running for his life. Now, again, I feel like maybe it's rust, but maybe Joe is seeing ghosts. But right now, there's something wrong in Cincinnati, and I think the season could go off the rails quick if things keep going like the way they are. So
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned him as an overreaction because I actually have him as one of my disappointments for week 2.
oh yeah,
I mean, he's coming off, the weird injury, the appendix.
mm-hmm.
So we don't know how much that may be playing into this potentially.
Yeah.
But like you said, the sacks, are out of control. Week 1, he was throwing interceptions left and right. I mean, listen, he's nothing but an average QB right now. After these 2 weeks, he's looked really average at best.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's definitely concerning. And I definitely have him in some redraft leagues that I had him in, and it's been terrible, man. And I'm like, here's a guy that I expected to help carry my teams,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just flailing out, and you start to wonder. I know, we get into this thing where it's like, how long do you wait to make decisions on players, whether you're trying to, pick up a player, trade for a player, bench a player, and it's like you're 2 weeks in now. He struggles for 2 weeks. It hasn't looked, like what you expected. So now, do you go for a 3rd week, 4th week, see how it keeps going, or do you say, hey, I'm going to just pick up a guy off waivers, or put him on the bench and pull out a bench player and put him on a quarterback spot who's been playing a little better? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you almost have to write it out because obviously if you're in like a 10-team league, maybe you might be able to find somebody better. But if you're in a 12-team, 14-team league, you're not going to find anyone better than Joe Burrow and the upside of Joe Burrow on the waiver.
That's what it is, the upside. Yeah.
You almost have to ride with him for another game or two, and see where it goes. It's funny. We're overreacting to Joe Burrow, and but I remember, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when Tom Brady had like a stretch of like, 5 or 6 games where he looked terrible.
Right.
And again, that's Tom Terrific. So he's in a different category, but he looked terrible. And I think the game that kind of like put everyone over the edge and called Tom Brady like he was trash was that Chiefs game. I think it was the Chiefs game he played, and he got shellacked. Mm-hmm. But I think that season Tom ended up like turning it around, and rewarding for the folks who kept him in the lineup and who stuck with him. So I would almost say with Joe, you almost got to give him a few more games to kind of ride this out and see where it goes. Because I don't think you're going to find anyone better unless you have someone on the bench. Then I would consider it, but I don't think you're going to find anyone better than Joe. Most teams that you probably drafted.
Yeah, and like you said, if you're in a smaller team, 10-team league, 12-team league, and you're not in a super flex, and you got a guy like Carson Wentz on your bench, or one of these kind of guys, maybe you while Wentz has the hot hand, you give Burrow a break. But again, it's going to also kill you when you put Burrow on the bench and then he finally comes out and goes off. So
Exactly.
if he's healthy and the sacks don't, get so bad, he has a chance to obviously go off. Even in the game where he would, week 1 where he struggled like crazy, he still bounced back pretty good.
Yeah.
That it like almost offset, depending on your league score and how bad he, affected your team. But
yeah.
The
thing I worry about with Joe though is if the Bengals don't get this right, I fear that he might go the route of Andrew Luck or the David Carr. Is it David Carr? Yeah, David Carr, right?
Yeah, David Carr.
David Carr. He might go the route of David Carr, where after getting hit and sacked as much, you start seeing ghosts. Next thing you know, you're out. You're getting all these injuries that you wouldn't have normally gotten in your first 1 or 2 years in the league. You're getting like injuries that are just like what you would expect from like a 10-year vet, right? Guys who've been So I think the Bengals got to get it right, and that's my overreaction. So
yeah, I definitely hear you. I don't think he's going to go that route. I think things will be better, and he's just more talented, I think, in general than at least a David Carr. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But I definitely understand the concern, in terms of the sacks and stuff. Like you said, just injuries alone, is a real threat if that's going to be a season long thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's not used to losing. You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing in his life. You know what I mean? So. All right.
Cool Joe.
Exactly. All right. So we knocked surprises out. We knocked overreactions out. The only other thing in week 2 that we definitely need to speak on is disappointments. And I mean, overreactions kind of sets in with disappointments depending on overreactions. We could also, speak positive of a guy that maybe we're overreacting on in a positive way. But for week 2 disappointments, I mean, clearly for me, Devontae Adams is the number one guy. Not only because I have him on a bunch of fancy teams, but also he's my Raider. And just the dud, man. Like, I mean, I know he had a touchdown.
2 catches? He had 2 catches, right?
Two catches, like 12 yards. One was a goal line touchdown. So, I mean, yeah, he got you a touchdown. But at the end of the day, like, the thing for me that, like, kind of bothers me is that the Raiders can't go with this, like, lopsided thing back and forth inconsistently with Devontae Adams, where it's like 1 week, you got friggin' 15 receptions, 100 and something yards, and then next week, 2 receptions. Like, to me, when you have a player that good, there's really no excuse to, like, not get him more involved. And I know I talked about it on What Happens in Vegas, but like, of course, you can say like Devontae Adams opened up things for other receivers and for the running game and for Darren Waller, but like at the end of the day, still 2 receptions, like 12 yards. Like to me, he could have done way more than that. And at least been a go-to guy at the end, or however you want to look at it, because the Raiders blew that whole game and it was just weird. But I definitely don't want to see a consistent thing like this with Devontae Adams, or an inconsistent season as far as up and down, because it's just not what Devontae Adams does, or a player his caliber needs to do, because just 2 receptions, 12 yards, it's just not good. So big disappointment for me this season from a fan perspective, but also as the fantasy manager who has him on some teams, a big letdown for me.
So question for you: the 2 receptions, is that because he's not getting the targets? Is it because Carr is not getting?
I mean, if you
throw it?
if you let Josh McDaniels tell it, he'll say that the Cardinals took him out of the game, or however he wanted to look at it. He did have 7 targets, so
okay, all right.
It wasn't like they didn't try. You know what I mean? But it's just crazy when you come out of a game and all these other receivers have more receptions than him. And again, like, there's no like, oh, well, it's a new coach. I mean, okay, yeah, you're a new coach, but you're considered an offensive guru.
Yeah.
And Derek Carr was your quarterback in college. So like you guys had this chemistry. So these were all these things that were touted, going into the season. It's like, why we should be excited about this. Why, Devontae Adams won't have a down year or less production with Derek Carr and the Raiders than he did with Green Bay. So I just don't want this to become a trend. So again, maybe a little bit of a reaction, not just disappointment, but it definitely was a major disappointment for me.
Yeah. I think that Devontae, I think he'll be fine. I mean, obviously, for him to get two catches, I was Also disappointed I have him on a few of my few teams.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Raiders got it. They got it. They got to get him the ball. They got to get him the
Yeah,
ball.
and Derek Carr said after the game, "We have to learn how to win." It's kind of like this cliche statement, but the real answer is we need to learn how to get Devontae Adams the ball. We need to learn how to find balance in this
Yeah.
offense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they really need to learn how to do all that first. And I hope it just doesn't take a long time to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that might actually be a good segue into my disappointing player of the week. So Kyle Pitts. So you said
Yes.
it yourself, right? These coaches, they're getting paid all this money uh, to scheme, to play call, to get their best players, to get them the ball, get them the ball. So I don't know if you saw, but the coach for the Falcons, he came out and just said, he's like, he's not playing fantasy football. He's trying to win. Well, getting your best player the ball is probably one of the best ways to win. There's no reason why he as in Kyle Pitts shouldn't be getting, 10 plus targets a game in that
Mhm.
offense. I mean, who else are you giving the ball to? I mean, I could maybe see Drake London. Maybe you're giving the ball to Cordell Patterson. But who else are you giving the ball to? Brian Edwards? Come on, get him out of here.
Kyle Pitts had 3 targets.
Oh, geez, it doesn't make any sense. And again, I for the life of me can't understand when a coach says, uh, you know, like they are trying to win. Get the ball, get the ball in the hands of your best player. That's what you
Mhm.
need to do. So, and again, you look at like what some of the great offenses, right? The Chiefs. Everyone knows Travis Kelce's getting the ball. Everyone knows he's getting the ball.
Yeah.
But
He
there's
still
no way
gets it.
there's no way you take him out of the game, right?
Right.
Uh, Even the Packers last year, when Devontae Adams was with the Packers, everyone knew Devontae Adams was getting the ball, but they got him the ball, right? That you can't take these players. There's certain players you can't take out of the game, right? Everyone knows Cooper Kupp's getting the ball. He still gets the ball, right?
Mhm.
So that's to me the signs of good offenses when they can get their best players the ball and not buy into this whole narrative of, oh well, this player got taken away. No, get the ball in their hands, figure it
Right.
out, figure it out.
Yeah, and it
So
also opens up a bigger conversation too because when you mention someone like Kyle Pitts, and just the tight ends in general. Like
mhm.
we have this thing where there's like 4 or 5 tight ends that everyone drafts earlier, and then you have tight ends who you could draft way later. And you have this little middle field where people like reach for these other tight ends because they feel like I missed out on these 3 guys or I missed out on
Yeah.
this group of 4. So now I have to get the next guy in line. And so guys like Kittle, Hawkinson, Pitts, like these guys are burning teams right now who, could have waited longer for a tight end because
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of tight ends right now who were drafted late in drafts who are up towards the top of the rankings for tight ends. Like, Everett, Higbee, Ingram's kind of, had some decent moments. Like there's these guys who are
Yeah.
outperforming Kittle, Hawkins, and Pitts. And I'm not saying it's going to happen all season long, but sometimes that waiting, if you don't get the top guys, right, the top
Mhm.
3 guys that are your most as sure of a thing as you can get, sometimes waiting for a tight end can be a winning decision. You know what I mean? For your league. So,
Cole Kmet.
I'm
Well,
not.
I guess Cole wasn't really in the middle. Was he in the middle? Nah, he's probably towards the
Depends.
end. He's
But
towards the end.
and I'm not saying Kittle, Hawkinson, and Pitts will have a bad season overall,
Yeah.
but just early on, they may be costing you games, and you hope that it doesn't carry any further or in key moments when other teams remove these guys from the game through the defense. But
Mhm.
that's why you don't reach if you feel like you missed out on the top guys that you felt like were at that position and you wanted one. You don't reach for the next guy because they're the next guy for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Let somebody
exactly.
else reach.
They're still on the board for a reason.
Yeah, let somebody else
Um,
reach and make it make sense.
yeah. I think this year the strategy of going not getting like Mark Andrews or Couch or Waller is it's backfired, right? Obviously, I
Mhm,
think Pitts was in a few of the leagues that I'm in. I think he fell to like the second or third tight end off the board.
mhm,
Um, but in general, I think that this year a lot of those guys who are in the middle. They're burning everybody, right? The Goddards, the Pitts, Hawkinson. they're just. I think my strategy moving forward, I think I'm going to go back to getting one of those top 2 tight ends every year.
Yeah.
I think trying to play this guessing game of is this guy going to actually is he going to hit this theoretical ceiling that we're expecting? Is he going to do it? And then you end up just getting burned. And then
Right.
But also I wanted to ask you. Is Hawkinson really good? Is he? I feel like we've been. I feel like the fantasy community has been pushing, Hawkinson as like a top. He should be a top 5, tight end. But I don't. Obviously, he hasn't put up any numbers, or he hasn't done anything to warrant that level of like trust.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's good. I just think that he's not getting well, at least not yet. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
this season. He hasn't had a big game I mean, just in his career in general. I mean, he's had 60 plus receptions the last couple of seasons. He's had close to 600, 700 yards those 2 seasons. I think at most he's had like 6 touchdowns though. So you'd like to see more touchdowns out of the guy.
Sure.
At the same time, we have to understand that the offense maybe isn't necessarily ever going to make that happen right now. I mean, St. Brown is going crazy out there. The
Mm-hmm.
running backs, Swift and them are going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's just not in the cards right now. He'll have his big games. You know what I mean? And we obviously we don't want to overreact and get crazy because also this is a tight end position. We know it's just volatile in general. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Some besides like you said, Kelsey, maybe Waller and a couple other guys.
Andrews.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
to get one, where you feel super confident every single game.
Mm-hmm.
So while Kittle, Hawkinson, and Pitts and guys like those are struggling right now, and guys like Everett and Higbee and guys are flourishing, maybe it's going to balance out by the end of the season. But some of these top guys that some people reach for may end up behind the top 12 or it's somewhere out there, and a guy like Higbee or somebody will sneak into it. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I just don't want to overreact to it, but it is just disappointing for these guys early on to see the struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping. I still have a lot of faith in Kyle
Yeah.
Pitts and the talent's there. I think the coach. I mean, obviously the Marcus Mariota is the one that's throwing on the ball, so I think he's still in a situation where he still has a lot of room to go. He's still pretty young, so I think he'll be fine. I like what they're building in Atlanta. I think they got to get that coach out of there. But I think there's other guys, Hawkinson, he'll probably finish the year in the top 10.
Right.
I think just based on volume and opportunity alone, I think he'll be fine. But I think a lot of folks are hoping that guys like Hawkinson, the Goddards, that those guys will outproduce their ADPs. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. And I have Goddard in one of my other leagues, a few leagues, and he's just not producing right now. I think it'll come though. I think it'll.
Yeah. Well, again, it's early, so everything we say, it's going to be fluid.
Yeah.
With my overreaction being negative and my disappointments are obviously going to be negative, I don't have anything else for week 2 that I want to be negative about. Do you have anyone else that you want to throw in the disappointments category?
Daniel effing Jones. No, actually, I'll say Daniel Jones and Saquon. Like I don't know what. Maybe the Carolina defense is actually really that good. Actually, they are pretty that they are that good. So I got to give them some credit. I watched that game. Carolina's defense, they look really good. They look really good. If any folks actually play IDP, there's a bunch of guys on that squad who probably not picked up. So I think those are my disappointments. But
Not good enough to stop your Giants from being 2-0 though.
Not good enough, exactly. So.
That's all that matters, right?
Oh, you know what? You know who's the biggest disappointment? Kenny effing Galladay. How about that? How about that guy?
I didn't have a lot of faith in him as it was. So, I mean, also the Tony situation is weird, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't understand. Is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Are they going to give him the snaps? Not give him? I don't know, man. I don't know. But whatever they're doing, it's working. So
yeah, for the team, yeah, it's
for the team. So hopefully they give him some more opportunities.
All right, so we talked about some bad players from last week. Let's go ahead and talk about some week 3 waiver guys that you want to get on your team now because they played great last. their situations improved dramatically for one reason or another. A lot of injuries happened last week that were unfortunate. You can go ahead and start if you have one on the top. Otherwise, there's some obvious ones we can also mention too.
So I would say the biggest one that if he's still available, I would say Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson. I think I mentioned him last week as someone who should be on your radar. But I think he has proven that listen, he's legit. I think he's now gonna command more snaps and more targets. When you're out there and you're just getting you're getting the targets and you're doing something with it, the quarterback's gonna look. They're gonna find you. He's gonna find you. So I think Garrett Wilson is someone who would be one of my top waiver wire priorities this week.
Underrated Jets offense, man, flourishing right now.
Yeah.
All right, so some obvious, an obvious one is Jimmy G, of course.
Yeah, Jimmy G.
Trey Lance done for the season.
With having Trey.
It sucks, man. Like he was one of the guys that I really wanted to see, how it played out for him this year. You know what I mean? And this just sets him back a year now, and it just sucks all around. But of course, when there's an injury like this, you can't ignore the fact that an opportunity opened up for Jimmy G, and it's gonna be interesting to see. But if you are one of those teams who are in a super flex, and this just becomes a gift to you, you know what I mean? Or you did have a Dak or Burrow, and Jimmy G happened to be available in a league, and you just picked him up to help yourself out for right now. So that's an obvious one. And staying on the injury thing, Benjamin in Arizona. If James Conner continues to miss time, I think he's interesting as well. Definitely worth a pickup. Conner obviously has a history of the injuries, so if that's something that's gonna be off and on, I have Benjamin on some of my teams already going into the year just because I liked how they were talking about him, in the preseason. But those are two obvious, injury related waiver pickups. I also think you mentioned at the top of the show, we mentioned it last week, but if there's any offensive weapon from the Commanders available, whether it's Samuel, Dotson, all these guys, Wentz, if he's available somehow, grab these guys, man. These guys are great waiver pickups right now. Who else are you thinking about making moves on? Either you've already made a move on them and you put the waiver claim in, or you're thinking about it.
I would say Jacksonville Jaguar defense. I think if you play in a DST or league that plays defenses, definitely consider picking up the Jaguars defense. The schedule isn't the best, but I think if they keep playing the way they're playing, I think they're gonna make some noise. I think it's a team to keep an eye out for. I would also say go through, check your waiver wire to see if Nico Collins is available. I think this past week, he got like 7+ targets, right? So when you command and you earn 7+ targets, and they were targeting him on early in the game too, which means they were game planning, trying to get him involved. So I think whenever the team makes a conscious effort to get a player involved, they obviously see that he has the talent, he has the potential, and they want to make it happen. So there's a vested interest to see him succeed. So I think Nico Collins is someone who I would definitely be trying to get on my teams for sure.
Yeah, I also think that I know Dak is out right now, but and I know you said the offense is struggling in Dallas, but Michael Gallup is kind of an interesting addition if he's not already on your team stash, like in a dynasty league, or obviously be on your team in a dynasty league anyway. But if you're in a league where Michael Gallup's available, CeeDee Lamb has struggled a little bit. Dalton's dealing with some injuries. I mentioned how Zeke is struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And Michael Gallup's an interesting guy. I mean, he's come back from a torn ACL that he had last season, but still, someone needs to step up in this offense. Someone needs to be, get points here. And so he's a decent option. Again, especially if you're in a league where you're really hurting, or guys that are starting off slow. I mean, he's just a decent stash. Even if you just wait to see how it goes, but I mean, who knows? He's a guy that has a chance to really surprise. And what about when Dak comes back? I mean, it's even more of a good sign for him. So just another interesting player to kind of plug in if you're looking for a stash. I'm in some leagues though, man, where you got to pay for every waiver move. And
Those
I
suck. I hate
I
those.
understand it's like a strategic thing and it's to limit people from I don't know. I think it limits the strategy a little bit too, though. So
Yeah.
when you mention a DST, like there's a DST in that league, and it's like I just pick one and I don't want to really keep streaming because it's like $5, $5, $5, $5 every week. It's like this league has
Yeah.
kickers and defenses, and I gotta pay $5 every time I make a move. It's like, come on, man, this is crazy.
Trash.
So it's crazy, it's nuts. And the bench isn't even deep. So it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to draft 2 defenses or 2 kickers. It's like, get out of here, man.
The worst.
So yeah, there's a bunch of options out there right now for waivers, and it just really depends on the league type that you're in and the approach that you want to take to it, whether it's stashing a guy or if it's a must-need guy. That's where Benjamin and Jimmy G are like guys you automatically just put right into your lineup right now.
Yeah.
But a guy like Michael Gallup you can wait on, or Nico you can stash. These kind of guys you can stash. Once you grab them.
Yeah. I think I like the Gallup call. I think that the talent's there. I am worried about that offense and basically the wheels falling off.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know Dak is going to be back in 6 to 8 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think the problem with Gallup is even if he comes back, it's probably going to take him a few games to get back into form, and then you're going to have Dak come back, right? And then it's going to take him a few games to kind of get back into form. The chemistry has to be rebuilt. But by the time that chemistry is rebuilt, you could be week number 13, and and you've already held Gallup for like all these weeks, and maybe he's had a couple weeks where he's put up some good numbers, but I think for the most part, I'm really worried about that defense. So I don't know, man. I'm not. I think Gallup might be a bit risky for me, but if you got a deep bench and you got an IR spot, throw him on there. Why not?
Yeah.
Throw him on there, and he's still on IR, right?
Well, he's actually. I don't think they even put him on IR.
Oh yeah, they didn't put him on IR.
They made it so that he can come back like within a couple of weeks instead of the way they had to wait 6 weeks and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess then I don't know, man. I think that's a bit tricky. Then I don't know if I would. I'm probably staying away from Gallup. I'm staying away from Gallup.
And also just like some headlines to think about, like Mike Evans is suspended next week, so people got to prepare for that. I mean, he's appealing it today, so we'll see what happens with that. But that's something to think about. Also, your boy Malik Willis, we'd be remiss not to mention he got to play yesterday a lot quicker than we thought. Right?
Terrible.
He looked bad.
Terrible.
He looked bad.
He looked bad. But I mean, he looked bad. But at the same time, I mean, he's a rookie quarterback going against one of the top defenses in the league, already down 41-7, whatever the score was, 40-something to 7. And you're expecting him to do what exactly? I don't know.
Dude, listen, and Ryan Tannehill could also have been on our disappointments. This guy has been terrible also all year, and the Titans have been terrible all year so far. And the Raiders play them next week, so 2 0-2 teams.
I think the Titans win that. No. I take it back. I think the Raiders win that game. The Raiders win that game. I think, as I predicted last week. Right, I think the Titans are going to start the season like 0-4, 0-5, and by that 0-5, maybe 0-6 mark, there's going to be calls from Malik Willis. Listen, they already uncorked that bottle by putting Malik Willis in there.
It's week 2. I mean, it's funny because there's a writer for The Athletic named Tashawn Reed. He covers the Raiders, and he during the Titans game, he's like, the Raiders better not lose next week. And I like retweeted it, and I'm like, burn it all. If the Raiders lose next week, I'm done. I'm tired of this. It's craziness.
You guys cannot lose.
But honestly, it's funny because the Titans really aren't a bad football team in reality. Like Derrick Henry's there, Ryan Tannehill's a vet. They got some decent wide receivers. So like, they're not really a bad. Last year they were in the playoffs, right? So I mean,
no, dude, no. I actually think they're. I think they're a bad team. I think they're a bad team. So. Sure, they were the number 1 team in the AFC last year. Okay. But if you look at like the way they've played this year, they can't block anybody. They can't, every single running play that every time Derrick Henry got the ball, he was being hit in the backfield every single play.
So you think they're going from 12-5 to bad football team over?
I don't think they made the playoffs. I don't think they made the playoffs.
Interesting.
I don't think they made the playoffs. And then also, who is Tannehill throwing to? Robert Woods. You know, I mean, sure. I like Robert Woods, but I don't think he's not that guy. I like Treylon Burks, but again, he's a rookie.
You mentioned your boy last week too.
Phillips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, Phillips threw up on. He just pissed the bed on this week. getting muff punts, getting rocked. Listen, I like the weapons that Tannehill. I shouldn't say like, they're okay. They're pretty young. You got two rookies in there. Robert Woods just recovering from an ACL, and the run game looks like it's non-existent. So, and the defense, you just got obviously the Bills are the Bills, right? I think the Bills are one of the top teams.
Crazy.
But you also lost to the Giants. Saquon Barkley ran buck wild. You know, I don't think they're a good team. They lost. Is it Harold Landry? Their defensive end or defensive tackle.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they lost him right before the beginning of the season. Dude, that's a big loss. That's a big loss, especially, you know, that defensive line. They got some other guys who are solid, but the secondary is young. They're making mistakes. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the loss of guys like Landry, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to injury. AJ Brown, they traded away. I mean, maybe these losses, these key players are, you know, bigger than they thought they were going to be. Yeah, I mean, obviously they couldn't bank on Landry. That they didn't know that was going to happen, but still,
sure.
You know, these are unfortunate situations. But we'll see, man. I mean, next week will be interesting with the Raiders versus the Titans. Like, we're going to see which team is for real.
You guys better not lose.
If we lose, it's gonna be really bad. It's really bad news.
Are they playing in Las Vegas or are they playing in Tennessee?
Let's check. Actually, I'm not sure off the top of my head. Let's see.
Okay, because listen, if
it's at Tennessee.
Okay, all right. I think the Raiders win. I think the Raiders got too many weapons. That offense is not really. The offense is not that good. So there's no reason why the Raiders should not go in there. They go and then the Titans go 0-3. I'm telling you, man. I think the season is over, and if the season is over we're gonna see Malik Willis sooner rather than later. I'm telling you.
You might be right. You might be right. Well, speaking of that was your bold prediction last week, right? Was it that or was that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
my bold prediction last week was that
Malik
Willis.
Too, right?
You know, getting into the game is going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Well, here we are once again at bold predictions, Bruce.
Yes. Well, you want to lead it off?
I'll lead it off. Also, one thing I want to throw into this episode as well, and I want to keep track of these is I want to do a lock of the week each week. So just one player who we think let's go with like a number like 10 plus points. So a player that we feel like will get 10 plus points, but like not an obvious guy, right? Like we can sit here and name obvious guys for weeks, but if we could just think of somebody who's not as obvious for our locks of the week as well. So we'll start with bold predictions first. I'll jump out with this one with I talked about Zeke earlier. Okay. Talked about this Cowboys offense. I think even with Dallas limiting his touches and giving Zeke more workload, no matter how bad he performs, Tony Pollard will finish this season as the higher scoring running back and land himself in like the RB20 by the end of the season, somewhere around there, or possibly better. So Pollard over Zeke by end of season.
Okay.
It's pretty bold, right?
That is a bold take.
Especially knowing that the Cowboys refuse to pull anything away from Zeke, right? I mean, that's the caveat here.
It's a bold take, but I will say that I feel like the Cowboys still give Pollard plenty of opportunity.
Enough work, right?
Enough work. And he's been good with the work that he's gotten. So I could definitely see that being a bold take based on where their ADPs were.
Yeah, so Pollard over Zeke plus Pollard top 20 running backs or better by end of season PPR. That's where I'm going to sit. I feel like that's pretty bold. I feel like it's pretty bold.
Okay, I can see that. Bold take. Damn. Okay. I think that can
Malik
my
Willis
bold
starts next week. No, I'm just-
you know what? I think Malik Willis will start by midseason. I think he will be in there. I don't think anyone expected that. I think Malik Willis is starting.
yeah.
Let me think about this. I think damn.
Go bold or go home, Bruce.
Go bold or go home.
Get crazy.
Get crazy. Get crazy. Okay. Can I say? Damn. Okay. Here's a bold one. Damn. Russell Wilson doesn't finish inside the top 15 quarterbacks.
What?
No.
Top 15.
I don't think he finishes top 15.
Dang. That is bold.
That's so again, I think I think that what we're seeing with Russell Wilson is that obviously this is a new offense, I guess. But Russell just doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look comfortable in the offense. He doesn't look like Russell, he doesn't run the ball. He doesn't run the ball anymore.
Right.
Take off and run with it as much as he used to. So if you're not going to do that and you're going to stand in the pocket and overthrow receivers, I mean, and you think about it, the Broncos have a good defense. They have a running game. So at some point in the season, I think the Broncos are going to be like, all right, well, Russ, you've only cooked us stone soup, so we cannot let you cook anymore. Yeah, and once you do that and he goes back to being a game manager, he's not a top 15 quarterback. So,
I mean, let's say this too. Looking at just straight up flat out fantasy points right now for this season, again, I know it's 2 games. We don't have a big data pool to pull from, but he's right now at 18 at quarterback.
Yeah.
Guys ahead of him like Carson Wentz, who we talked about plenty here, Joe Flacco, Burrow, even though we've talked about how bad he's played, is ahead of Russell Wilson, Mariota, Derek Carr. I mean, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, we talked about him, Baker Mayfield in Carolina, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is top, he'll be a top 15 quarterback.
These guys are all ahead of Russell Wilson right now. So I know small pool to pull from.
It's early.
Even just talking narrative, I mean, you just feel like he's in a struggle in Denver. What do you think the struggle is because of? I mean, do you think it's the new team? Do you think it's bad coaching? Do you think it's the weapons? I mean, I feel like the weapons are pretty decent.
No, the weapons are good.
He just got hurt, right? But yeah, I mean, it's decent weapons, and it's Russell Wilson. I mean, he's never had a bad season I could even think about. But what from a narrative standpoint? I mean, what are you thinking here, man? What's the
So I think from my perspective, I think the narrative is it's a new team, probably new play calling, added responsibility. You know, he probably didn't throw as much as he did before. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the play calling is actually that good. From everything that I've been reading about Nathaniel Hackett, it seems like there's questions about his offensive schemes and the way he actually calls games. But I just think that Russell is struggling, and I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he goes out there. I always hope all these guys prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you struggle against the Seahawks, when you go out and everyone is like let Russ cook, and you go out there and you're not really cooking. You're just kind of microwaving. I feel like it's again, if he the pace that he's on, he's not a top 15 quarterback. Again, maybe he flips the switch, mid season and everything looks good, which can happen. I think that's what typically happens with quarterbacks, new teams. They flip a switch mid season, they figure it out, and maybe he ends up top 15. But at the rate that he's going, he's not a top 15. And then also
Mr. Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited.
Come on, man.
But here's the thing, and the other thing you got to look at too is that in that division, the Chargers are good. Mm-hmm. listen, the Chiefs, even though the defense might have taken a step back slightly, the defense is still reasonably good there. The Raiders.
Listen, we're gonna have to stop this Raider slander, man. Come on.
I mean, I feel like in that division though, the defenses they're not really pushovers, right? So,
right, for sure.
And he's got to play 2 games against each of those teams, so it's I just struggle to see that.
And that's a hell of a pass rush in every game too. Just, I mean,
say it again.
That's a hell of a pass rush that he faces just in that division too. I mean,
exactly, just in that division,
crazy.
Exactly, just in that division alone.
He's got Mack, Khalil Mack. He's got Joey Bosa. He's got Max Crosby, Chandler Jones. Like, and the list just goes on and on. It's like, every team in this division has a good, has good DN. So
they come from, yeah. And again, he's not running he's not taking off with the ball. He's trying to stay in the pocket, trying to make plays. And yeah, I think he doesn't. I don't think he finishes the year as a top 15 quarterback. That's my bold take.
That is bold.
Trying to make it spicy.
Spicy. That's cooking, right? Russell Wilson's cooking. It's spicy.
All right. Russell's out here microwaving.
Right. Let's end this episode with a lock of the week for week 3. Like I said, basic perimeters can't be so obvious. And it's gotta be. We're just predicting 10+ points. I feel like that's a pretty good, solid performance from a guy that you don't feel is obvious. I mean, 10, 15, somewhere in there is pretty decent, right? It's pretty decent outcome. So I'll start it off, give you a chance to think about it just in case you haven't, because I did kind of just spur the moment. I'm gonna go with Nelson Aguilar. He had a big game last week.
Okay.
I think he's gonna have a similar game against the Ravens as he did in week 2. So I mean, Waddle and Tyreek ate the Ravens up in week 2. I think Aguilar and Myers can do that again in week 3 for the Patriots. I feel like, I mean, he had a really good game last week, man. And they don't have a lot of pass catchers that are standing out like that. I mean, Jacoby's been doing great. He's been very consistent. But if you watch the game, I mean, Nelson Aguilar went out for 110 yards, a touchdown. He had a big catch. I feel like the way Tyreek and Waddle, again, they're great talent. So I'm not saying he's that level of talent, but the way that they were able to find big plays and 2 touchdowns a piece, I think it was, right? Almost 200 yards a piece. It was crazy. I believe Aguilar can rip a big one at the very least, right? So 40, 50 yarder for a touchdown. I believe that's there for him against the Ravens. So I feel like you got 10+ points for sure in Nelson Aguilar. Again, we'll keep track of these and we'll see which one of us gets the most. Hopefully it's not too brutal, Bruce. Hopefully it's not too brutal, but
hopefully
Nelson Aguilar out there, lock of the week, 10+ points. Not so obvious lock of the week. Week 3 against the Ravens.
Got it. Okay. I think my lock of the week, I'm going to go with Robert Tonyan. I think that he started the season, kind of the Packers want to slowly ramp him up, get him more in the flow. This last game against the Bears, it looks like he was getting more involved in the offense. And he was getting, a couple of red zone looks. So I think this week coming up, he's my lock of the week. I think they're going to get him more involved. I think he's going to get a couple of red zone looks, and I think he's going to cash it in. I think he's going to get a TD. So
TD. I mean, TD gets you 6 points.
Well, TD and a few catches. TD.
Yeah. TD, a few catches. The TD is going to be at least 10 yards, hopefully, or 5 yards. He'll get there. He'll work his way through it.
He'll get there by hook or by crook. And then also, I mean, they're playing the Bucks too, right? So I think that the same strategy that they took with the Bears, because the Bears are a dysfunctional offense and they're not really going to you don't have to worry about like scoring a ton of points. I think what you're going to see is them use the same game plan against the Bucks that they did with the Bears. They're going to run the ball, give it to Aaron Jones. They're going to dial up a couple of plays for the receivers, but I think they're going to keep it. It's going to be a very easy game plan. I think they're going to give it to Robert Tonyan. I think he's going to have a big game against a 10+ game 10-point plus game against the Bucks. So
got it. All right, I marked it down. We will let
down.
keeping track of this, man.
Yeah,
we'll see who has the best end of the season starting from week 3. We'll see who does well. Hopefully, we will do great. So it helps everybody out. All right, that's all we have, man. We covered everything important from week 2. You know, all the narratives, all the data, all the production, everything we need to talk about. We gave our quick peek into week 3. You know, how we feel about the waivers, the predictions, and everything else. Our lock, of course, now. Anything else, man, that we're missing here in terms of, you know, what we witnessed last week and, you know, what we, potentially going to see in week 3?
Listen, the Bills are legit. The Bills
Super
are legit.
Crazy.
Hey, listen, if you can trade for, get a player, a piece of that Bills offense, maybe not the running backs, maybe not so much running backs. I would do it. I would definitely any of those wide receivers. I think, well, maybe not all of them, but for sure, Gabe Davis, Diggs, even McKenzie, and maybe and Dawson Knox. I think those guys are gonna have. It's gonna be a crazy season for the Bills. They just look so good.
In PPR, Stephon Diggs leads the entire league in all fantasy points.
Crazy.
It's no joke. It's no joke.
Yep.
And I want people to start recognizing my part and shot for this episode is start to appreciate Amon-Ra St. Brown, man.
Yeah.
He's talented. Stop thinking he's not. Stop thinking he's not elite.
He's up there with the best. He is elite.
He's up there with the best, and he gets crazy amount of targets. And it's just 12 targets back-to-back weeks.
Wow, it's crazy. What was the stat that said he's the first player? Not rather, he's he joins a very elite company in terms of players who've gotten 8+ receptions over the course of. I can't remember the stat. Never mind.
I missed that, but I believe it, whatever it is, because he's doing great. He's getting all the targets in the world, and it just looks good, man. So
yeah.
All right, man. That's all we have for this week. Then we look forward to seeing how this all plays out for us, man. And we'll chop up next week with our week 3 recap and our look to week 4.
Sounds good.
All right, man. We're out.
All right, Neal. Later.
Later.